Good late evening. Welcome to the Natural Resources, Agriculture, and Open Spaces Subcommittee. I am your chair, Delegate Regina T. Boyce, and we are here this evening late, but hopefully we will be able to get through a very long list of bills. Some will just be discussion. Some of them we will require some amendments and will more than likely push them through. And if I see the hours getting way too late and people are passing out because they're hungry, we may pause and then just pick up next week. And so just very quickly, we'll be discussing HB 85, HB 233, HB 234, HB 239, HB 256, HB 345, HB 379, HB 420, HB 497, HB 512, HB 561, HB 562, and HB 590. It's a very long list. If I would have known better, I would have definitely not had this such a long list, but we're just going to get through it the best we can. I do want to start with HB 85, Delegate Layman's spade and neuter fund bill. We've been looking at this, and Kristen, you want to jump in before I?
Sure, we went over the bill last week and then there was discussion on the bill, and the bill was ultimately held. There was questions about, how much additional funds would be needed to provide spay neuter services, how much is needed to support the expansion of services that are in the bill. There was concerns also related about, the fee being increased, and expansions of services. And so I think where we left off was we were just getting some information on other states and what's happening there. There's a few states that have also adopted the $100 fee on pet food registrations that support various spay neuter services. It's not all apples to apples. Did you want me to go over the bill again or
Yeah,
just?
very briefly, and then I think I see MDA on the call. I want to just check in with them about the grants given and how much is actually expended and what is left over if there's anything.
So the bill makes a few changes to this current spay neuter program. It's allowing, it adds language to allow for the spay neuter program to receive voluntary donations. It allows additional uses of the fund. It requires that certain considerations be given to grant proposals. I gotta look at those details, but there's also the big part too is that it's increasing the fee that's currently paid on pet registrations from $100 to $130, and that's expected to be phased in over a 3-year period.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristen. And just from research from my office, the other spayed and neuter pet food registration fee programs were Maine, which is apparently the first legislature to apply a surcharge. So it funds their spay and neuter program for pets owned by low-income citizens, and the state levies about additional $20 surcharge to pet food on top of a U.S. It's a $80 animal food product registration fee. The money essentially goes to their sterilization fund, and then it also goes to their local, I guess, animal welfare shelter. And then I think they end up being able to have like a tax write-off through this. They have other license plate fees and things that they can get from West Virginia. It's just solely a surcharge, through a surcharge to registration fees, $75 paid by the pet food manufacturer. And it just pays for spay and neutering of stray cats and dogs. New Mexico does $100 product label fee. Their money, 4% goes to the state's Department of Agriculture to fund pet food registration, and then up to 5% of the remaining fee revenues may be used by New Mexico's Board of Veterinary Medicine for enforcement of the Animal Shelter Act, that they have there. And then Delaware, um, uh, has recently, of course, increased their fees to $100 in the last 3 years, and their money goes to they're a little bit different. The companies um, not only have to pay for a type of pet food, but they also each it's also each by size of the container that the pet food is in, whether it's fresh, frozen, a big can, little can, small bag, medium bag, large bag, or a jumbo bag. And their money goes to $25 of each fee is deposited into the state general fund, $3,000 annually to be collected, allocated to the Department of Agriculture for maintaining the new software that supports their program. And then the remaining funds can be used for various related purposes to animal welfare, including expanding the program and rabies vaccination program for low-income pet owners, supporting shelters and rescue workers, caring for free roaming cats, and then providing funds to nonprofit animal shelters for spay and neutering animals. So that's just an idea of what some other states do for that program. Rachel, are you available?
Yeah. Okay.
I can hear you a little bit. I wanted to just quickly ask you, we talked a week ago, and forgive me, I cannot remember the conversation because it was quick and was late, but we talked about really how much money, how much grant money goes out every year. Is it all spent? Is there something left over? Is there a need for an additional amount?
So sure. There is a need for an additional amount. I can tell you that across the state.
Oh, Rachel, I don't know if it's
One,
me or you, but you're coming in broken. You're broken up. You're breaking up. Okay, maybe she dropped off. She's going to come back on. So I mean, that is the question regarding this. I know folks like the bill, but they're worried that um, if it's a spade and neuter program, funding should just be going to the spade and neuter program. If in fact there needs additional money, there are additional programming in here as it relates to vaccination of as it relates to rabies shots and vaccinations that I know there's believes to be like a correlation with it and something needed. I know there's the mobile veterinary clinic that is a mention if someone has it, they could potentially get funding. I did have questions about where is it? Whether or not and maybe is Jennifer on the call?
Yes, ma'am.
I had a question about, so in the bill it talks about the department shall give additional consideration to competitive grant proposals that it says the mobile veterinarian clinics, and I wanted to know how many of those are in the state. And then it says be able to serve multiple jurisdictions. And so I guess I'm wondering about if local um, facilities keep records on who they serve. So for instance, in the SPCA in Baltimore City, I'm sure more than Baltimore City residents come to the SPCA for spade and neutering. Is it Baltimore County? Is it, Harford County? Who else is coming? And would that count as serving multiple jurisdictions?
So I can at least give a partial answer. I know that the Maryland SPCA is one group that does have a mobile clinic. I think that part of including that language is to enable other jurisdictions to do the same. The different organizations do keep track of where the people that they're serving come from. Sometimes they'll apply with the grant funding. This is how Baltimore County Humane does it. They'll say, we want to target very specific zip codes. So it's even beyond just we're opening up to residents. They're saying these are really underserved communities. So their reporting is, we really are going to fund clinics in those very specific zip codes, recognizing that's where services are needed. I know that the Talbot Humane, they said about 60% of their applicants or their participants come now from Dorchester because they do serve both counties and there's such a great need in Dorchester. So they have volunteers who are often bringing the pets up. So there's a variety of ways the different clinics do handle these multi-jurisdictional needs. And from the data I sent over the weekend, there are certainly counties, including Kent, where there aren't clinics available to residents. So our shelter partners are trying to be very creative in meeting that need.
Yes, let me turn it over to Delegate Jacobs. Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. I called Kent County because I found that a very unusual statement, because I know they're pretty wealthy over there with their they just built a brand new $2 million Humane Society building, which most of that money was raised locally. And so I called one of the board of directors of that Humane Society, and they said they do in fact give money to local veterinarians for clinics, but the money comes out, they raise the money themselves, and that they have never asked for money from this spay and neuter fund. So it's not that the services aren't provided, they are. And I thought they were, because when I was mayor, I used to have cat colonies in Rock Hall, and they were part of a spay and neuter program that was paid for by Really Great Cats Rescues. That was another one. But, I know there are multiple programs over there. They just haven't requested the money as of yet, but they probably will be now.
Delegate Jacobs, so what you're saying is that if I'm in Kent County and I have a stray, I can take them to a vet and they will perform services for free because there's a fund to do so within those.
There's funds provided by the Kent County Humane Society that are privately raised, according to the director.
Got it. Oh, Rachel's back. Rachel?
Yes, my apologies. That's rural broadband for you.
Listen,
I
okay,
just
all good.
switched devices. So to answer your question, what I can tell you is that last year, 1.3 million was requested across the state from various shelters across various counties. We were only able to award $912,358. So there is a little bit of a shortfall.
Sure.
If that answers your question.
That does answer my question. And so it would seem that then the increase, whether it's 130 or we decide to do something less or something more, whatever it is would help to fill this gap. And then as I make sure I also understand it, is that currently I, as a provider, could not also through an application apply for monies that would also perform vaccinations and rabies shots. Is that correct? Or could I do it without this bill?
I believe, to my knowledge, you cannot. This bill expands what the eligibility criteria for that fund.
Right. And as I understand it, there are some there's some organizations that are doing this service at their own cost.
Yes,
Okay.
sometime. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
Madam Chairman, if I may,
Yes, please.
I was on the original task force that established this program
Mm-hmm.
and spent several weeks or days of my life in August and July to establish that with the former delegate Lafferty.
Mm-hmm.
And we established this to do a good service. And I don't think the expansion, I think the private funds can be raised to do that. We have organizations that are advocates, not putting a burden on the choices and the manufacturers of the pet food industry. We very carefully sought that and were reluctant to make that a funding mechanism, but we did choose to do it because it had a connection to where the monies will be going to. And if we raised the fee to a 110, I might go along with that, but to expand it and index it and raise it to 130, I think that is about ridiculous, and it's not the purpose of what the fees were to start with. We just happened to come to a consensus to make that the funding mechanism for this program.
Fair enough. Delegate Tarasa.
Sorry, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I would just point out that just because they've managed to raise funds doesn't mean that means they're able to satisfy all the need they have.
Who's they,
And-
Delegate?
What?
Who is they?
Whoever it was that Delegate Otto and Jacobs were talking about, they were able, the shelters, whoever are
Talking
performing.
about Kent County. Delegate Jacobs was talking about Kent County.
Okay, but then I guess to Delegate Otto's point, just because they have raised enough money or they haven't asked for more money doesn't mean that they don't need more money or couldn't spay or neuter more animals if they could. I mean, I know that just in terms of the foster agency I work with, there are certainly times when they're like, they're begging for food, they're begging for whatever money for free transport. So my feeling on it is that we'll be able to serve a lot more animals if we're able to raise this the way the bill has it proposed.
Well, at least meet this shortfall, because according to
Right.
Rachel, there's about a $388,000 shortfall. And if Rachel's still here, is there anything that local jurisdictions provide to those organizations within their local budgets to help also offset some of these funds?
I'd have to get you the answer to that question directly from our vet board. I will say until I have that answer that I think one of the things that the vet board and both the MDA really liked about this bill is that it also creates that donation option where private citizens and other organizations can also donate to the fund in addition to the fee increase. But I can get you some numbers and perhaps get that back to you in the committee tomorrow.
No problem. And I need to open it up and look, but I think the fiscal note says within 3 years, this would be raised to about $300,000. Is that correct, Kristen?
That's correct.
So it's like 100,000 in the first year, 200,000 in the second year, and 300,000 in the third year, phased in. But if there's a shortfall now of about, so you can't fund about $388,000 worth of request, it would be an incremental increase over the next couple of years. So you would still, if I'm thinking about this correct, every year there'd still be somewhat of a shortfall in being able to meet request.
That's correct.
And
That's what we
Rachel,
project.
this is competitive, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. Delegate Jacobs.
Well, you're assuming that all those labels are going to stay intact and not, or the companies that are not going to pull back any labels. Some labels that may not be performing as well as others may be pulled back due to the excessive charge, which is higher than any state in the United States.
Fair
So
enough.
I think I'm opposed to this increase to 130 and the expansion of services.
Okay. So
You called it both.
are you also opposed to any increase or just this particular increase to 30? Because you said before you would, or maybe that was Otto, a little bit, but not 30. Is there an increase that's more appetizing?
I would listen, we've got over 240 increases this year, fee increases already. So in other, just about anything that moves in this state. And the veterinarians, they got a $576,000 increase regulation that came through about a month ago. So there's a lot of fees in play right now. I don't think that everybody understands the cumulative effect of all these fee increases. But, I think that I would be on the same page with my colleague that I would probably, because it's been since 15 or 14, since it was $100, that I'd feel comfortable with 110, and that's it, not an incremental increase and no expansion of services. That's the only thing I'd vote for.
Thank you, sir. Delegate Tarasa, and we'll wrap up after this and move on.
Oh, are we voting on this evening?
We are not. ma'am.
Okay. I mean, I can hold on. I mean, I think it's obvious I support this, and
Sure.
I'd like to see the whole increase. And isn't this just per product that a company sells? Like, it doesn't seem, I understand what Delegate Jacobs is saying about cumulative effect, but this seems like pretty minuscule compared to what they probably make in the state on per label. So anyway, that's my 2 cents, but thank you.
Okay. Delegate Jacobs.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but
Go ahead and beat it.
I can tell you from talking to my where I buy pet food, and he's a major pet food dealer. Horses, dogs, cats, rabbits, goats, you name it, they sell the food. And I'm telling you, they didn't like the $100 fee, and there's, every label has to pay this, no matter whether they sell, 100,000 cans or they sell 1,000 cans, whatever. You just don't know for sure that some of these won't pull out and drop some of the labels coming into Maryland if they continue to raise this price. That's what I'm saying. We're getting this money based on I don't know, around 1,000 labels, I think.
10,000.
And what's that?
10,000.
10,000. Okay. But that's my 2 cents. That's all.
We like your 2 cents. Delegate Tarasa, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may be confused, but I thought this only applied to companies making more than 500,000. So it doesn't apply to the,
It does. The other companies, $500,000 and less, would still pay the 100. So they're not subjected to the increase.
to the increase? Okay.
Yeah,
Well-
the 10,000 was meant to just the number of labels that register with the state chemist.
And so that would be the $100 and if we, go to $130 to $130, correct, Kristen?
Well, everybody has to register at the state chemist. So everyone, I'm not sure how many of that 10,000
Got it.
fall under the 500,000 exemption.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have a thought or a question that is not Delegate Tarasa or Delegate Jacobs?
Yeah, Madam
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Rachel was careful how she worded that thing. There was $981,000 distributed to those that asked for the awards, and $1.2 million that was requested. Some of those projects may not have been worthy, and that's why they go through that review process. I'd be more interested to know what was taken into the fund and not what was spent. And
So what she was saying is that there was 1.3 million requested, and they funded 912,000.
And that doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't because they didn't have the money. It was because
That's fair.
some of that could been because the projects didn't warrant the bang for the buck.
That's fair. Rachel, would you like to clarify?
Sure. And again, Delegate Otto, that's something I'd have to follow up with the vet board about to see whether or not the SNAB advisory board that makes the decision and reviews those grants. I'd have to see whether or not that was an issue of we don't have the funding, but to my knowledge, we allocate all of the funding that's raised, but I can double check and get back to you all tomorrow on that.
I'd appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I'm going to jump around because there are a couple of bills that are very simple that we need to review, potentially accept some amendments and hopefully pass out. I want to start with Delegate Love's Bill, HB 379. Kristen?
Sure, this is the bill that's prohibiting traveling circuses and other types of shows from using bears, big cats, elephants, and primates in the state. And we have an amendment. Right now there's language in the bill that, on page 3, lines 13 through 17 regarding enforcement of the bill, and the amendment strikes expressly identifying DNR as enforcing the provisions of the bill. So we'd leave it up to the local governments or animal control, similar to other animal cruelty laws, to enforce.
Is there someone would like to move the amendment, or is there a further discussion? Delegate Stein,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move the amendment.
is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion on the amendment? As it clarified, it will be up to the local jurisdictions to enforce. Okay. All in favor of the amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Can I have a motion to move the bill as amended?
Move the bill, Madam Chair.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Any discussion on the bill as amended? All right, all those in favor of the bill as amended, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Anybody hungry? All right. Okay, so we will report favorably for HB 379 with the clarifying amendment. Before I go further, I'd like to quickly ask who would be interested in presenting this on the floor.
I'd like to, Madam Chair.
Allen, Delegate Allen, thank you. All right, let's go to HB 497, Delegate Hornberger's hunting non-resident sick deer stamp fee alterations. Patrick, if I remember correctly, the Senate increased this to $200. Is this the one?
I think that's right.
He's on mute. I'm going to tell him.
That's what I have in my notes, Madam Chair.
$200, yes.
Okay, and I know that there were some murmurings about folks wanting to do more, but I think the $200 certainly suffices. Is there any discussion regarding that? Yes, Mr. Baker.
Okay, this bill will have no change into resident deer stamp
No,
costs, correct?
it's $10, and with the proposed fee for a non-resident goes from 25 to 100, but per the Senate that increase it, it's actually 200.
Okay.
Is that the only thing the bill does?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Who
Can I-
has a sick of deer in their district? I do. And they
Yeah, at
can
this
be
point, they're everywhere.
devastating. Yeah.
Is there a motion to move the amendment from $25 to $200 for the non-resident stamp?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Oh, second, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 And no,
No.
no, it's fine, that's fine. You're recorded as your no. Someone please move the bill as amended.
Move the bill, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Otto, thoughts, opinions? No?
I'll just vote no, and you can roll it through like you
That-
do.
Yes, sir. All those,
Citizens are going to vote for you, Otto.
you know? All,
It'll attract the other states. I'm sure Virginia and Delaware will come down to pay $200 to go sick a deer hunting.
well, we've got the most, they may, I'm just saying. All those in favor of the bill as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Any oppositions? Oh, bill moves favorably. I want to also do Let's look at HB 562, Patrick.
Okay. Sorry, I gotta get through my files here.
That's okay. I got a big binder here.
Okay, 562 is a similar bill, increasing this is for the boat license, the fishery boat license. The current not out of state is the same as the in-state, $50. It creates a new fee for non-resident applicant of $100.
And it
And
looks
the Senate
like,
did not change this one.
what's that?
The Senate did not change this one.
Oh, it says Triple E reported favorable with amendment. Do you know what the amendment was?
The amendment just added sponsors, I'm
Oh,
told.
okay. Sorry. Okay. Any discussion on this bill? This is, again, I think the biggest complaint has been that we've got the beautiful natural resources, we've got the specimens to hunt, but we have very cheap fees compared to not only surrounding states, but also pretty much on the East Coast. And so it feels like we're giving away, you know, we're not making essentially a profit off of those who would come in the state and hunt. Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would this also qualify for federal matching funds?
It does not mention that. This is fishing. The other one was hunting. It does not mention it at all in the fiscal note. I think I saw Paul Pedito on here earlier. He may be able to confirm that.
Oh, hey, Paul. Or Dylan. Oh, both of them here. Can either one of you confirm that as well as the other bill?
Yeah, I'll defer to Paul. We also have Sarah Whitman on for the fisheries related
Oh,
questions.
yeah. So we wanted to know whether or not this bill, as well as the other bill, qualified for the federal matching funds.
The hunting bill does qualify.
Right.
Correct.
The fishing does not.
Sarah?
Correct. Fishing does not. It's the number of licenses, not the cost of the license.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Is there a desire to move the bill? No. No desire to move the bill?
Bill?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any concerns? Again, it's another bill that increases non-resident licenses.
This is just for the fishing license for the
Yes,
boat?
sir.
I'm
The
good.
special bay and coastal sport fishing license, non-resident fee.
I'm good
This
with
is
that.
Delegate Jacobs' boat license.
Mine stays at 50.
Yes, it does. It sure does.
Well, it may change. Who knows?
Who knows? Bill's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of moving favorable HB 562, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposition? No. We will move the bill favorably. I'd like to go back to Patrick, do you want to go back to, let's go back to HB 233?
Okay. We discussed this last week. We went through the bill and we went through the amendments and the fiscal aspects of it. The amendments, they do a lot of stuff at the fringes, but the main thing is that they push back the timeframes to give the local jurisdictions more time to do their updates. And the hope this week, I think, was that we adopt the amendments and then we have to run it through Appropriations Committee for approval.
Okay. So yes, it does, yes, a couple of things besides the pushback dates. And increase, it also adds their kind of equity lens to the proposal, as well as looking at my notes, climate resiliency, equity, and of course a lot of administrative changes, as well as a lot more allotted time. And I believe there was a provision about allowing the organization to make a decision on behalf of the local jurisdiction if they did not like plan or respond in time.
But they're pushing back those timeframes in the amendments.
Right. Do you want to pull up the amendments and go through them, or?
We went through them last week.
I don't remember that. Oh, yes, what's his name was on the line. I'm sorry. I don't remember yesterday. Eric was on the line. I guess the question is, are there questions about those amendments and what they do? So for instance, like at one point they've removed the Secretary of the Environment from the bill and replace it with I believe it's DNR. They do some
Well,
stuff.
just DNR. That's in the
Yeah.
in the federal program.
Yep. And, oh yes, I'm sorry, Delegate Stein.
No, thanks, Madam Chair. I would move the amendments. Full disclosure, I'm on the relevant, I'm one of the House members that's on the commission that relates to this program. But regardless, I think it's a good bill, and so I'd move the amendments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the amendments? All in favor of the amendments, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay. The bill as amended.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Is that a second, Mr. Jacobs, or is that a
No,
question?
no, it's not.
What's the question?
I'd like to have a reprint of the bill in its entirety before I vote on it.
Okay, it should be in your, calendar invitation. I put all files at the calendar invitation.
With these amendments.
Yes.
Yes.
It's a full reprint.
I haven't seen it.
It is, can you look in your email? All the amendments, all reprints are in your email as attachments.
I got the amendment.
Oh, we did not. We sent out the amendments because
Yeah,
it's such a large bill.
I don't have a reprint. I have the amendments.
Leslie, can you please send the reprint?
We sent out amendments for this bill instead of the reprint because it was such a large bill. I can get the reprint though.
Yeah, we should have had the reprint. We should always have the reprint. Please. Mr. Jacobs. No further questions, Mr. Jacobs?
No, I wanted the reprint before I voted on
My
the bill.
apologies.
That's
I
all.
thought the reprint was in,
That's
because
all.
I have the reprint. I'm looking at it.
It's a
Everyone
big
else had it.
bill. It's a big bill. I want a reprint.
That is fair.
Fuck that.
I just thought you all had it because I have it. So the amendments have been moved and seconded, and I guess we're going to hold about moving the bill. The bill's not moving out of the subcommittee, but we did want to pass the amendments and the bill so that we can have it viewed potentially, or have it viewed in appropriation. So we will hold off on that. Okay. I'd like to go to HB 561. Delegate Watson's tree expert license bill. Patrick, could you explain the bill?
Yeah, hold on. My thing is frozen here. Okay, here we go. Okay, this is Delegate Watson's tree expert license bill. It is different from last year's bill. Establishes a legislative purpose, requires every license holder or employer of a license holder to carry and show proof of workers' compensation insurance for each employee working under the supervision of the licensed tree expert. That part is repealed or stricken in the amendments that the sponsors offered. Repeals limitations on the amounts that DNR may set for licensed tree expert application and renewal fees. Right now, it's supposed to be enough to cover their costs of application and renewal.
I'm sorry, 1 second, Patrick. Leslie, can you bring up the reprint? Because that is in the,
Yes, just 1 second, please.
thank you so
Chair.
much. I'm sorry, Patrick, please continue.
Okay, it started there. It repeals limitations on the amount that DNR may set for licensed tree expert application and renewal fees. Specifically, currently, they're supposed to set them in amounts just to cover costs. And then it authorizes administrative penalties for failure to maintain workers' compensation insurance. The
Madam
amendments
Chair?
offered, but
Madam Chair, can we just clarify whether you mean, when you say existing, you mean in the existing bill or existing law? Sorry,
well, this is what the bill does.
but you said, when you say right now, I'm not following because I don't know if you mean right now in the bill or right now in existing law.
I'm not saying this is what's in, what I just said is what's in the bill, what the
Okay,
bill
so-
changes.
So we have the reprint up. I mean, we just tell us where you want us to scroll to start, Patrick.
All right, let's roll down a little bit. Okay, Rich, stop. Well, go up a little bit.
There we go.
This is simply the legislative purpose that the bill establishes, and you can go down a little bit more. Thank you, Leslie. All right, hold
Right.
here. Stop. Okay, thank you. This language, which I said was stricken, required every license holder or employer of a license holder to carry and show proof of workers' comp insurance for each employee working under the supervision of a licensed tree expert. That is stricken by the sponsors' amendments. Can you go down a little bit? Okay, you can see, actually, hold there. You can see here, hold there. Oop. Up a little bit more.
Subject to.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you, Leslie. In lines 25 and 26 and 30 and 31 strikes the limitation or repeals the limitation that the amount of the application or renewal fees be an amount to cover the costs of processing the renewals and applications. And then if you go down a little bit more,
These are added.
all right, and
So those are the fees that have
it's a
been.
little bit more, Leslie, towards the bottom. There, up one or two more lines. There you go. It adds the failure to maintain workers' compensation insurance as something that's subject to administrative penalties. And the amendments, which had stricken the previous provision, simply add the liability property and maintain the workers' compensation insurance as subject to the administrative penalties. And if you go up a little more, the amendments also add caps on the licensed tree expert examination, licensure, and renewal fees. So before the amendment, they were limitless, if you will. And this sets limits on those fees.
So you can't be just charged some arbitrary fee. So Any questions about the amendments? Oh, I'm sorry, Delegate Allen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I just wanted to point out, or maybe this isn't this so, but this has support of the industry, of the arborists. Is that the case?
Correct.
That is correct.
Thank you.
And if I remember correctly, I'm going back to my notes because I scribble notes actually in the system as well. The DNR also supports this bill. And these amendments one of them did come from the industry. And so this bill is favorable all around.
Yeah, I know of no opposition to this bill.
There is no opposition. And the favorable with amendment is now favorable because they added the industry amendment, I believe.
So can we move the amendment or we're still,
Are you asking to move the amendment?
Well, I see Delegate Stein has a question, so I don't want to cut him off.
Delegate Stein?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was just going to move the bill.
The amendments or the bill?
Oh, I guess the amendments. Okay.
Second.
Okay, it's second, Teresa. Any discussion on the amendments? Just want to make sure we all have an understanding about the bill and what it does. Okay. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? The bill as amended?
Move the bill, Madam Chair.
Is there a
Second.
second? Any discussion? Any final thoughts? All in favor of the bill as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? Bill moves favorable. Sorry, we'll go back and forth. I'm looking at the time as well. I did want to tackle today. We've discussed it, but we haven't really moved it. I want to talk about HB 234, which is the Department of Agriculture's licensing, registration, fees and penalties. And if there were any thoughts or opinions about that particular especially kind of the Eastern Shore folks, any thoughts about this particular bill? It's a small bill, small fees. Jay?
The last 5 bills have been fee increases, so
Okay.
you're on a roll tonight.
Yes, indeedy, but I'm asking you about the substance of the bill. Is there any questions and any thoughts about Department of Agriculture's bill? Right, so it
Looks like
Delegate Baker.
has a
sorry,
question.
Baker. Dude, you have to use your hand button. Yes, sir. You're muted. You're muted, Delegate Baker. There you go.
The Farm Bureau, as presented, they're still in favor of it. No opposition from the Farm Bureau.
Let me triple check that. I don't believe so.
I don't
That's
think
correct.
so. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, the unfavorable testimony are random folks, but the Farm Bureau was favorable with amendments as well as the Big B apiary. And I guess if Rachel's on, we can talk about whether or not they were willing to address those amendments.
Sure.
Yes.
Farm Bureau's proposed amendment was the part of the bill that would remove the tiered or the index for the penalty for the AIR report.
Mm-hmm.
Farm Bureau wanted that portion of the bill to become effective January 1, 2026, as opposed to either October 1 or July 1 of this year. They felt that that would give farmers more time to prepare. The position of the agency, we're not like full on opposed to it. If the committee should so desire to amend the bill to that, but it was, brought to my attention by the secretary and deputy secretary that this report has been due since 1999, and that farmers have known since then that they are supposed to, by March 1st of every year, submit their nutrient management information via the AIR report. And so they don't really feel, the agency's overall position is that, will a year and a half really, set people more straight any more than an effective date of this year will? And so we're open to the amendment, and it's
We're talking about
certainly
page 5. Are we talking about page
Correct.
5?
yes.
Okay.
So that would be up to the committee.
Okay. So, okay.
And in regards to the beekeepers, I know there was one gentleman who submitted proposed amendments for how he felt the bill should read. He felt that there wasn't clarity between the difference between an apiary and a colony. Our state apiarist and the attorney general assigned to MDA both believe that the bill as written is accurate and clear enough. And so we are opposed to the amendments for the beekeeping portion.
Okay. Okay, so that has been addressed. And as I remember it, Kristen, there is, for the beekeepers, there is a fee if it is determined that they have a colony that they had not registered.
Right. If they fail to register, or if they fail to provide the movable frames,
right,
those would be subject to
yes,
penalties.
But registration is free. They just have to register.
Right. They currently under current law have to register.
Yes.
And it doesn't cost anything, but this would attach a penalty for failure to register.
Okay. I'm going to go back to page 5.
Delegate Baker's waving.
I'm sorry. I have my computer lowered. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay, so my question is, do we have the Farm Bureau and the beekeeper amended, accepted in this bill?
So as Rachel just stated, that there was a disagreement on terms in the bill, and that they sought out the AG's opinion, and the AG's opinion stated that the bill as written, contrary to the apiary's testimony, suffices. So the Department of Ag feels as though that the language suffices since the AG weighed in. The Farm Bureau, to her point, she's saying that they want more time. She's saying that reports have always been due, and that, I shouldn't speak for her. She's still here.
Sure.
It's at the will of the committee, but reports have always been due, and it just sounds like for decades they've just continued to be late.
Yes. So Tyler and the Farm Bureau and their Legislative Review Committee understand what we're trying to do with the bill, and they're overall supportive of it. They just asked if it was possible, not for all of the fees to take effect in January of 2026, but just that penalty for the change in the structure of the penalty for failure to submit your AIR report on time. That's the only component of the bill that they're asking to have an effective date that is further out than the rest of the fees. So we would be okay with that. But we feel like the overall opinion of Secretary Addix and the Deputy Secretary is that this is something that farmers know they're supposed to do. And we've had this discussion with the Farm Bureau, and they do understand.
So just so I'm clear, the whole bill takes effect October 1st, 2024. They would want January 2025, or?
They would want January 2026 for the nutrient management AIR report.
But when are those reports due usually?
March 1st of every year, ever since 1999.
So this year, they could or could not do it. We would pass this bill. It would can go into effect January 1. You'd have potential 6 months to know that your reports are due 30 days after the due date.
Yes.
Okay. Delegate Otto and then Delegate Jacobs.
Yeah, Rachel, that's not quite accurate about the AIR reports. They weren't established until I think it was around 2010 that those were sent in. That was not part of the original document, and it started out as a single page document. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 pages, and it gets a bit ridiculous. And I think the ability to comply, to have the information is worth a little patience with the people that are filling them out, especially in the spring.
Certainly, and Delegate Otto, let me clarify. The law requiring farmers to have a nutrient management plan and to report that information to the MDA was passed in 1999. So while the reporting process may have changed, the statement from the MDA is that this reporting mechanism or this information being due to the MDA has been in existing law since 1999. And again, we've already discussed with Farm Bureau, and I believe at either a House or Senate hearing, we brought up the fact that we would be willing to waive the penalty if someone, after they received their notice, said, hey, I'm 40 days late and here's why. MDA has the discretion to waive that penalty, but we do feel like it's best to have it in law because right now we have so much non-compliance. So again, this particular part of the bill, as I mentioned in the committee hearing, is not because we need funding in this particular unit. It is to incentivize compliance. And so it's really up to the discretion of the committee. The amendment that the Farm Bureau has asked for is an extension for that part of the bill. And I just wanted to be sure to share what MDA leadership was thinking about that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Delegate Otto, anything further?
This also includes weights and measures fees and all as well.
It does not. It removes that the secretary shall set reasonable fees for registering each weight and measure used for commercial purposes under the subtitle, and it removes it so that I'm assuming that they can
It's to set by regulation rather
Regulation.
than statute, but the
Yep.
delay of the fees is not attached to the amendment that Rachel was just describing. That's just for the nutrient management plan.
Yes,
provision.
ma'am.
That's correct.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but I'm asking about the bill. It
About
also
the bill.
the weights and measures that affects every consumer in the state.
So those fees right now are currently established in statute, and what the bill would do is it would take out those fees set by statute, instead give the department the authority to set reasonable fees by regulation.
And Delegate Otto, those fees would still have to be voted on by the AELR committee. So the legislature would still have an opportunity, or that committee would still have an opportunity to look at the proposed fees and either reject them or approve them. But it just gives the secretary the discretion to increase them with inflation and cost of living, because those particular fees have not risen with cost of living and inflation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Delegate Jacobs.
The only thing I wanted to say was the issue of the implementation of nutrient management plan. You have a Farm Bureau asking for an extension and the grain growers asking it not for an extension, that it's critical that these plans be in a timely manner. So I just wanted to point that out, that they do have a little conflict there between those two as far as implementation goes.
I think the grain producers is on the bill. I don't think they make a statement one way or the other on the Farm Bureau's position.
Let's see.
Based on conversations, Delegate Jacobs, I do recall that being accurate based on verbal conversations with the Maryland Grain Producers Association.
Well, if you look at paragraph 2 on their letter of support, I think you'll understand what it says about that compliance factor.
It says favorable. I'm happy to look at the letter again. Delegate Tarasa. I'm sorry, Delegate Jacobs, were you finished? I didn't want to.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I also want to say that Delegate Jacobs is on AELR, so that's also important. Delegate Tarasa, then Delegate Ziegler.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I mean, if you're taking input, I think it makes sense to pass this without that amendment. And
Which amendment? The date, the extension?
the Farm Bureau,
Yeah.
like, it sounds like they've known about this for an awful long time. And they have to, the reports due every March, so, but I see that Delegate Ziegler wants to, I mean, I would move that, but I see Delegate Ziegler's hand up.
Good, Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, thank you, Delegate Jacobs, for pointing that out. And I kind of feel like for the people, for those of us who do comply with the law, it's just, it's frustrating that it's like other people don't have to. I mean, I just don't see why, there has to be a time. It's a pain in the neck. We all get that, but you have to do it anyway. So I would like to move the bill without the amendment.
Second.
Okay, there's a first and a second, and I do want to be clear from the Department of Ag's point of view is that the fee or the 30-day requirement is not about making money. It's really about moving people's butts to get these reports in, and that the department, it sounds like, I don't want to make assumptions, would more than likely waive fees if they got the reports in time, or if an explanation was given to when the report was coming versus waiting 6 months, 2 years, 5 years. Is that correct, Rachel?
That's correct. Yes.
There's a first and a second on the floor for the bill unamended. Is there any discussion? And Delegate Jacobs, because you are on AELR, it means the weights and measures, potential regs are going to come to you. Do you feel comfortable with that, or are you just a no because you think people need more time and you want?
I didn't say I was I'm on nutrient management also. I'm on both, but I'm just saying that we just went through an exercise about nutrient management, and it was a heck of a mess in the last few months, but they're kind of at odds, which is unusual. Normally they're on the same page, but in this case, you have one that wants it done in a timely manner, and one's asking for an extension. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and that's fair, but it also sounds like, and I'm trying to weigh both issues here, that one, the reports are always due, and two, it sounds like the department would more often than not really charge a penalty.
Right.
The penalties aren't that relevant, really. It's compliance, because your WIP plan is based on, the nutrient management plans. They actually factor in on a lot of different things. It's not just the farm itself, but that compliance factor, getting up to a high percentage is really important. Wouldn't you agree with that, Rachel?
Yes, I would. And the sort of split decision between the Farm Bureau and the grain producers, the Farm Bureau just voted in a brand new board in December. They have a new government affairs person. The Legislative Review Committee, a lot of new folks who just felt like they like it but wanted to ask for this extension, whereas the grain producers, they've had consistent representation for years, and they're a little bit more ingrained on how this works, and they've been the ones to say, we think it's fine as is.
Okay. Bill's moved and seconded. Are there any other discussion? All those in favor of HB 234 to move favorably signify by saying aye.
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 Opposition?
No.
No. No. Okay. Jay, are you a no as well? Okay.
No, I'm not a no.
Okay.
I'm a yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Bill moves favorably. We'll report out. I want to go to HB 256, the Waterway Incident Notification System Work Group. I've been working with the sponsor, Delegate Jones, to come up with a good resolution so that this can also be studied potentially without a work group per se. And so I've been in contact with the Maryland Office of Emergency Management, who believes that they can do this. I've talked to the chair, and so we are going to work within the next week, and hopefully by next meeting, have a bill that's amended to be a study, so they can study this, because the real issue is that it is something that could be useful in Maryland. What they want to study is whether or not it's actually feasible, because if they do all this work and they do the research and find out it's actually not feasible, then they're not going to be able to do it. So we're going to come back to that next week, hopefully with the amendments to make this a study and not a work group. Delegate Ruth.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And so it sounds like if it's a study, then there wouldn't be stakeholders on. And so I'm just asking in light of Baltimore County's requested amendment, so that wouldn't be relevant anymore to add?
Probably not, but we do want to make it relevant in that it is a cross-jurisdictional issue, and making sure, I think OEM or knows who would have to be, I think they would just potentially hire somebody to consult to do those work. And I think if anything, we can mention in the bill who may be consulted, but not having to have like these work groups where, we have to pick and find folks, and then, what ends up happening is you don't get people in time and it doesn't come out in time. So I would say it'd still be, if there was an amendment submitted to have them a part of it, I would argue that they would have to be a part of it per whoever this consultant would be, but it would not be your typical work group.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to make sure Baltimore County is, included in some way. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Make a note of that. Okay. Put up my list here. Let's go to, because I know Paul Pedito and Dylan are on here, so we can touch on HB 512 for discussion. This is the Natural Resources Fish and Fisheries reporting requirements. During the hearing, there seemed to be some confusion that somehow this was a more reporting bill, and it's not. And so, Patrick, if you could just touch on the bill for us, and then have Dylan and Paul touch in after.
Well, the bill's simple.
It is.
It repeals the requirements to file fishing reports on forms provided by the department, and just in accordance with regulations adopted by the department. That pretty much deals with anyone dealing with seafood, packers, fishermen, watermen.
Well, yes, thank you so much. And I want Dylan and Paul to clarify that there's a belief that this is a mandate that is going to remove paper forms altogether and do straight electronic reporting. So if you can fill in and chat in, I know you said there also may be a need for an amendment.
Yeah, I think we're still working out what the amendment would look like, but and Paul's here for the wildlife stuff tonight, so we actually have Sarah.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Sarah Widman on from our fisheries team. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a relatively straightforward bill. I think there was a lot of conversation at the bill hearing, around not scoping this idea, and I think that's kind of the argument for the bill in a way, right? We need this bill to be able to scope alternative reporting options. And I want to turn it over to Sarah Widman, our technical expert, to see if she has any specific points that she's interested in making.
Yeah, I don't really have a lot to add. It's really just giving us the ability. Right now, we've piloted electronic reporting as an option for folks for over a decade. So it's been tested, it works. we'd love to be able to use that as a method for people to report. So that's.
Yeah. And so again, a method to report, but not a method to totally replace paper. So to the point of someone made, if they are somewhere where there's a bad signal and they can't like be online to do something, they wouldn't be, or if something doesn't go through, you've submitted it, you found out it didn't go through, and then there's an issue there. So
Yep.
Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. You know, during the hearing, we had 3 people in there from Maryland, 2 from Maryland Waterman Association. One from Maryland. Where's the day with the can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, they were having a horrific day with the streaming, and they couldn't hear what was going on, and they still. I mean, I got calls from all these people when the hearing was over. They were all upset about how the thing went, and I know that Robert T. he couldn't hear, and he had a couple questions that he wanted to be able to ask, and it was such a mess. So he's on here tonight, and I was just wondering if he could, if we could ask
Yeah,
him.
if it would help clarify.
I just want to make sure that it was such a mess that they abnormally screwed up mess with the Zoom that he just didn't get things right. So if he's
Robert
on there.
T., do you have questions, Robert T.?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Madam Chair. You know, we were into the scoping, worrying about that it wasn't scoped, and I had elderly people that going to need paper, and we got towers that don't work in different places in the bay, so that they could like hail in and hail out if you using the electronic reporting. Another problem we have is out of the OAC that's a Oyster Advisory Commission came part of the oyster management plan. That oyster management plan is into it, and I don't know how it got into it because I'm on the OAC, and it says that if there's a place that's overfished, they could close that NOAA zone. Well, a NOAA zone is, let me give you an idea about the size of it. In Calvert County, at let's see, Cove Point, it runs from there all the way down the St. Mary's County line through past Point Lookout all the way down to Smith Point. So that's a large area that would be shut down just for some place which is overfished. And we have a problem with the way they definitely define overfishing. And overfishing on the eastern shore of Tangier Sound has been one of the godsends for us on the bay on oysters in the past few years. The amount of oysters that have came out of that place, and they're catching that limit the last day of the first day of the season to the last day, and it's still under this overfished. And right now, a lot of them are still catching their limit. So I mean, and then we got a place called Britain's Bay, which is an oyster sanctuary, and according to the scientists, they're saying that's being overfished. Well, how can it be overfished when we're not fishing in there? So we got other problems if it went completely electronic reporting, where your reports come in right away and they could change something in the mid-season. This past season was the first season when every year they redo it. What your limit's going to be, how many days you work a week, when the season starts, when the season ends. And now in January, they're going to review it to change the plan for the rest of the season, possibly. They didn't do it this year because of the great spat set we had this year. And thanks for that. However, it's hard for us to run a business when you don't know whether you're going to get a whole season in or not without having your plans and stuff changed. So this electronic reporting would have given the data quick enough so they could change something in the middle of the season, but it's not going to work because we've got to be able to work a whole season and change it like we've been doing for years and years. And to prove that it's working right, back in 2003 or 4, we only caught 26,000 bushels. This past year, we were over 700,000. We won't reach that this year because markets got very bad here lately. And, we got tidal fish licenses. And the reason for that is so we can move from one fishery to another and it helps with all the oysters we had. That took some of the pressure off our crabbing. And then now, if we lose the last part of our oyster season for some reason, then we're going to be put up where we'll have to start crabbing earlier and stuff. So we need to leave some things as they are. I'm not. I know it's a way of the future, this electronic reporting, but we got to make sure how the data is going to be used for us. Thank you.
Well, before DNR jumps in, Robert T., I will respectfully say, one of the things that was intriguing to me about this is that the department is really not getting enough data, which is why some of the decisions that they make you don't like, because it's based off limited information that gives a picture that something may be wrong, and therefore DNR has to act. If they can have more information by a variety of different types of reporting, maybe we'd have a larger set of data where they're not scrambling and having to make these last minute decisions, because they'd have a better picture, right, of our fisheries. They'd have a better picture of the bay. So I somewhat disagree, but I do really understand that you want to ensure that people don't get, again, pulled back or lost back if they can't have the technology to use the system. But again, the system is not mandatory. Dylan.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I would just echo everything you said. I think, the one thing that you heard in the bill hearing is right now we're at about 60% reporting. And as an agency that's driven by the science, the one thing that we need to be able to do that is as much data as possible on, the catch that is happening. And the bill itself doesn't, flip a switch tomorrow. I think that's what Kristen said in the bill hearing. It doesn't flip a switch tomorrow, but it does authorize the department to be able to go through the formal regulatory process and go through that scoping process to work with the stakeholders to figure out what we can do to increase our reporting and be able to make the most effective decisions, because we're right now we're at that 60% number. So we are extrapolating on that data for the other 40%, which is not the best way to make sound management decisions. And I don't know if Sarah has anything else to add as well.
No, don't. You and Delegate Boyce said everything perfectly. Is what I was going to say. So,
Delegate Jacobs. Delegate Jacobs, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Dylan, I want to work with you on an amendment for that bill.
Yep, we happy to do that.
Because it does have a electronic reporting, and I think we have some technology we can use to expand some areas that have virtually no reporting.
Yep, happy to work with you on that.
Since we're talking about the value of data,
yeah,
and I want to work on an amendment that'll give you some more very vital data.
Well, I'm hoping you can have that together by next Tuesday.
We will, don't you worry.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We will.
Thank you. And with that, I think it is 9:10. I did want to go over HB 590. I know there are many issues with that particular bill. The chair is texting me. We can go over that bill, and then I think we're going to close out. Um, 590, that is the Boating Migratory Waterfowl Season Prohibition Act. I know DNR, you guys weighed in and have some thoughts that this may be unconstitutional, and I wanted to know if you could, Patrick, if you want to talk first and then have them jump in, or just have DNR just go.
Well, I can just say real quick that this is a bill we saw last year. Prohibits a person from operating a vessel in any manner within 500 yards of a stationary blind site that is occupied and being used for hunting waterfowl. There is an amendment offered by the sponsor that limits the vessels to which it applies to non-motorized watercraft, but both the department and I agree that that doesn't really address the constitutional issues that the department has raised.
Dylan?
Yeah, agree with Patrick, and I know Paul is on for this bill, so I will defer to Paul on this bill.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I think, yeah, we have to concur with Patrick. You could effectively close, entire stretches of waterways, even if it's just 2 non-motorized vessels, and that trips that constitutional trigger.
Okay, and so I guess just to be fair to the bill sponsor and to I guess I'm trying to figure out what is the problem he's trying to solve, and is there another way it can be solved?
I think he said he was trying to address boaters and fishermen getting in the way of people who are waterfowl hunting and scaring away the game and the like.
Is
and
that
them placing themselves in danger at some level too?
Paul?
Yeah, so if I could, Madam Chair, so first I want to make sure, I want to just clarify something here. That this isn't really a significant, there's no danger here. I know there was a whole conversation about 500 yards and kayaks. I could put somebody in a kayak at 500 yards and quite literally shoot at them with a typical duck or goose load, and they might not know that they were shot at. That the rounds that we use for killing ducks and geese they're not going to kill a duck or a goose at 500 yards. It's not even close. So I'm not sure what where the distance came from. I would add that there is a provision in law already that prevents a person from intentionally disturbing another person's hunt unless that individual is on their own property or they have permission. So if a person was on public waters and they were intentionally disrupting a hunt, there is on the books an enforceable provision that, arguably could kick in here. I think these are sort of unintentional conflicts that occur. But again, most of this is winter season. These are December, January hunts. I can't speak to exactly what the sponsors are intending here, but that's what I took away from listening to the hearing the other day.
Delegate Jacobs.
I'm just going to wind it up very quickly here. I do know what the issue is, and it was interesting what Paul just said. Maybe, Paul, if you could talk to the sponsor of the bill, that last statement you made that there is a law in the books would help his situation, because what he's got is he got a guy in a kayak that wants to thinks they have authority over the duck hunter. So he's out there paddling around the duck decoys saying, you can't run me out of here, yada, yada, yada. So there's a little contest going there, and you may have the solution without the bill. So hopefully you can talk to the sponsor and clear this up.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay, so Mr. Padilla, you're going to talk to the sponsor, and based on what you guys come up with, we will either, it sounds like he may have to withdraw it, or it sounds like there's no amending to this particular bill. Whatever, you know what, you'll tell me what you'll do. You talk to him, and then you tell us. Sorry, sir.
Will do, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Okay, guys, it is late. Good work. We essentially voted out 5 of the 13 bills. We discussed all but all but 2 bills in full discussion. So good work. Thank you so much. I will be in contact about bills that folks may want to defend on the floor. There are the 2 fee bills. Delegate Allen currently has a bill. Delegate Ruth or Delegate Ziegler or Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Stein, if you're interested in defending any of these bills, it would be essentially Delegates Loves Bill, the Wildlife Traveling Animals Act prohibition. Delegate Ruth, would you be interested in that? Okay, Delegate, oh, nope, that's Delegate Allen's already do that. My bad. Oops, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, I know what one is good for. There's 497 Delegate Hornberger's increased fee for the non-resident Sicadir stamp. Delegate Ruth?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I
Thank
know you are. That's why I picked you. Madam Ziegler, do you want to take the other fee increase bill? Yes.
The fish one,
Yep.
okay,
Okay, and then I will do the departmental bill, and then there's one more I'm missing. Oh, the Watson bill, the tree expert. I can probably take that one. I think I had to do that last week, so I'll take the tree and the departmental bill. Okay, good job. We will continue on next week. Hopefully, once Delegate Jacobs and everyone else gets the full reprint of the critical areas bill, we can look at it as a whole again. Hopefully, have some questions. Note we did move and pass the amendment. So now this is just looking at the bill one more time before we move the bill with the amendments, make sure there's no other questions or discussions. And hopefully we'll have some other bills ready to go. And mainly next week, really talking about the State Boat Act bill, which I think is really important, and some other small bills that just need some good eyes on from this committee. So thank you so much. Great job. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.